So why do we need a border wall? Well, that's a really simple answer. In 2017, ICE arrested 127,000 people coming across the border illegally. 127,000. That's over 10,000 a month. That's over 350 per day. These people, the Pew Research Center released a report, I believe in March, that out of that 127,000, more than half, the majority, more than not, they had prior criminal convictions. They are criminals fleeing across our border. And on top of that, it is the number one way that drugs are smuggled into this country, including opioids, contributing to the opioid crisis. We have an opioid crisis and we have an unsecured border where they are flooding across the border per day. They walk them across the border in the dead of night and sometimes in the middle of the day. They don't give a shit because they know it's very unlikely that they're going to get caught. And if they do get caught, they just get sent right back to where they started, and probably within the very same day of making it back home, they're on the path to crossing the border again. That's ridiculous that we're allowing this. We have an opioid crisis and we're allowing drugs to flood into our country, and the Democrats do not want to stop that, although they condemn the opioid crisis themselves. On top of that, over 3,000 had domestic battery convictions in the U.S. This isn't where they come from. These are U.S. convictions. So they come here, they commit crime, they are criminals before they arrive, they get deported, and they come right back in. Over 6,000 of them had DUI convictions in the U.S. And we see on the news every freaking day, we see another story of an illegal immigrant drunk who fucking kills somebody. And the Democrats won't secure the border. They say we can't afford $5 billion to secure the border, but they're endorsing Ocasio-Cortez, Low Oxygen Cortez's new Green Deal, which would cost us $90 trillion. The Democrats can't math. They've never been able to. They fail every fucking time. So here's the other issue, is the American taxpayers' cost on illegal immigration is, by the most conservative estimates, $130 billion a year. $130 billion a year. Some estimates are up as high as $250 billion. You can't afford, if I said, if you give me $5, I'm going to give you $300,000. That's not a fucking deal to you? Are you serious? That's ridiculous. To say we can't afford it, but we can afford these social welfare programs and we can afford socialized medicine is ridiculous. I cannot even comprehend where they come from. And it comes down to very simply, because we see it every year during the midterm elections. We see it every 4 years during the presidential election. There's YouTube videos right now of people following a bus, and a busload of illegal immigrants, a busload of Mexicans gets off the fucking bus. They go into a voting station. It's a 25-minute long video that I've seen, and they all come out, they pile back into the bus, and guess what? The person following them followed them to another polling station where they got off the bus, went in, and fucking voted again. They don't want to secure illegal immigration, or secure the south border and put a stop to illegal immigration, because that's part of their constituents. That is part of their group. That is part of their voter base. And it's absolutely, it's uncomprehendable to me that they can be allowed to get away with this shit, because nobody does a fucking thing about it, because the spineless Republicans in office now won't do a fucking thing. How in the hell are they allowed to get away with what they do? They say we can't afford to, they say it's a manufactured crisis at the border. 127,000 arrests a year is a fucking crisis. The fact that women and children are being human trafficked across the border, both kidnapped in our country and taken out, and then smuggled into our country, and the number one thing is not actually sex trade. The human trafficking coming into the country from Mexico is not majority sex trade trafficking. It's forced labor. It's the, forced maids and enslaved people. They get promised these fucking jobs that don't exist, and then they get pushed into forced labor. They get here, their passports get taken, their IDs get taken, they get given no money, and they get held. It is absolutely ridiculous and deplorable to think for 1 second, when we have the statistics, to think that it's a manufactured crisis when we're arresting 127,000 fucking people per year. And 2017 was actually a pretty light year. That wasn't the most we've ever arrested in a year in recent history. Clinton called it a crisis at the border and passed his Immigration Reformation and Improvement Act. Democrats gave it a standing fucking ovation in Congress. They supported Obama when he called it a crisis, but when Trump tries to actually do something about it, it's not a crisis.